Well, good morning, everybody. It's Friday, I think it's the 8th of August, 2025. It's 6:45 in the morning. I'm just starting my morning run. For local people, I'm on Norwood Road at the Middle Arm Road end of it. And I'm going to run to the other end of it, which is the Crookle Road, and turn around and come back. Now, I reckon it's about 4 k's to the other end. So I'll get on with it. Now today, when I'm running, I'm going to talk to you again about the government's plan to ban children under 16 from watching YouTube. Now, I made a video about this about a week ago, and I've become aware of some more information that I think is worth talking about. But before I do that, just a few clarifications that I made last time, but I think it's important to do them again. This isn't about me having a whinge about losing revenue or subscribers or anything like that. I have subscribers, of course, to my channel, and I'm very pleased to have them. I don't have any commercial arrangements. I don't make any money. I don't have a Patreon. I don't have merchandise to sell. I'm just a bloke who makes videos while he's running, or motorcycling, or whatever. But there are some issues at stake here that I think are worth exploring and discussing in more detail. Whether you are a amateur like myself, or somebody who's doing it to earn a living. First of all, I want to try and explain as best as I can what I understand the government is trying to do and why they're doing it. Now, the Australian government has passed legislation that at the moment comes into effect in December of this year that says certain social media platforms children under 16 years of age will not be able to use them, will not be able to have accounts with them. And that's a critical word here. Now, in the previous video, I said the age was 13, but in fact it's 16. Now, children under 16 will not be able to have accounts with certain social media platforms. Now, the government says that there is material on some of those social media platforms that is offensive and dangerous to children and contrary to Australian values, and that they have asked the various platform owners to remove that material and be more vigilant in preventing it from being posted in the first place. Some of those companies have said No, we're not going to do that. I'm making an argument about free speech. Other companies said, well, we do it, but we can't keep up with the amount of material that is there. Now, initially, YouTube was going to be exempt from the ban, but the E-Safety Commissioner advised the government that despite the view that YouTube had an educational value, the risks to children outweighed any potential educational value, and YouTube should be banned, or children under 16 should be banned from having YouTube accounts as well. The government has accepted that recommendation, and so YouTube has become one of the platforms that children under 16 will be prohibited by law from having accounts. Now, the detail of how the platform is supposed to work out if a child is under 16 or not is still being worked on. The legislation says the legislation says the owners of the platforms are required to take reasonable steps, whatever they are. Now, to be clear, I agree. There is a lot of offensive material on YouTube. There is a lot of material that is harmful. I cited the story of the young girl who was being fed information about body image and so forth, who developed an eating disorder and eventually took her own life. And there's lots of information like that available, apparently. So I agree that we need to do something to counteract that sort of thing. Exactly what it is, I'm not sure. I'm not an expert in that field. But here's the problem with what the government is trying to do. In the case of YouTube, you are not required to have an account in order to watch videos. You can open the app on your phone or your tablet, or go to the website on your laptop, and you can watch whatever you want to your heart's content. What you can't do without an account is that you can't comment on videos that you watch. So you might want to tell somebody that their video was really great, but if you don't have an account, you can't do that. So legislation's intent or plan to stop people under 16 watching offensive videos won't work on those grounds alone. What it will do, or what it might do, if you don't have an account, is make it more difficult for the algorithm to work out what it is that you're interested in, and therefore be able to feed you more videos on the topics that you have researched or videos that you've watched. You can't do that as well because it doesn't know who you are. So you watch a couple of hours of YouTube videos and then you go offline or go do something else or whatever. Next time when you come back, you start watching again, and because you haven't logged into an account, you can't say, oh, it's that bloke or that girl and they like these things, so here's some more of that stuff. It might take the algorithm longer to work that out. I suspect it will eventually work it out. It just might take longer to do so. However, this is a big however. If you have a Google account, because Google owns YouTube, such as a Gmail account, or you have access to Google Docs or something, then I'm sure that it will be possible to cross-reference between your Gmail account or your Google Docs account and the device that you are using to access YouTube. Now, for those who didn't know, every student, as far as I know, this information is still correct. Certainly was when I was working. Every student in New South Wales public schools has an email address supplied to them by the Department of Education that is run through Gmail. So every child from kindergarten to year 12 has a email address that's billy.blogs or mary.smith at DET for Department of Education and Training, that it used to be called, at nsw.gov.au.eu, whatever it is, that is supplied to them under a contract between the New South Wales Department of Education and Gmail. Now, okay, kids in kindergarten aren't sending each other emails, and the teachers aren't sending them emails either. But certainly by the time those children are in about year 3, they would be using that email sometimes to send work to their teacher or send work to the Dropbox that the teacher uses via their email. certainly by the time that they're in high school, they would be doing that on a pretty regular basis, I reckon. Students have access to Google Docs or word processing or whatever that's called these days, and using the Google equivalent of PowerPoint and so forth. So I'm sure that it's possible for Google to cross-reference between email accounts, Google Doc accounts, and somebody who's watching YouTube videos. Now, one of the channels that I watch a lot of is called the Constitutional Clarion. It's a channel run by Professor Anne Twomey, Twomey, and she is an emeritus professor of constitutional law at, I think, Sydney University. By emeritus, I mean she's one of the top brains, if not the top brain, when it comes to constitutional law in Australia. And she has made a video about this very topic. As I said, I'm not an expert in constitutional law. I said that in the last video. I'm saying it again now. I'm trying to give you a summary of what she said in her video. If I have made an error or said something that she didn't say or interpreted something incorrectly, then I'm welcoming someone correcting me on that. But what she essentially said was that there is a possibility, she didn't say it was certain, but she said it was a possibility that this matter could end up in the High Court because Google have threatened a High Court challenge, and that it's possible that the High Court might find the legislation unconstitutional. Now, her reasons for saying that are to do with freedom of political expression and discourse. Now, it's not freedom of speech entirely, but it's freedom to engage in political expression and discussion about political matters. Now, you might think, well, people under 16 don't vote, so what the hell's that got to do with them? And here's the thing. She says, imagine that a student 14 or 15 is studying some aspect of Australian politics in their program at school. Now, I can think of lots of reasons why they'd be doing that, but let's say, for example, they're trying to understand the electoral system. And the teacher says to them, well, we're going to watch this video by Professor Twomey that explains all of that. So they sit through it in class. That'll be allowed because the teacher will still have access to the account or access to the video. And so with the students at home, she might send them the teacher that is, might send the students a link in their email and say, well, you might want to watch this video at home just to make sure you understood it all. So student Joe Blow is at home. He clicks the link, video comes on, he sits through it, listens to it all, and then he has some questions. Well, he's under 16, he doesn't have an account, he can't ask Professor Twomey a question, he can't make a comment, he can't seek, or she for that matter, the student can't seek clarification of a point that Professor Twomey has made. And in her mind, as a constitutional lawyer, not as a content provider who's got a frustrated viewer, but as a constitutional lawyer, that might be viewed by the High Court as an infringement on the right of political expression and freedom to engage in the political discourse. Now the question would be, I believe she said at the time, would be whether the implied right of all citizens, irrespective of their age, to engage in free expression around the political discourse can be overridden by the desire to keep young children safe from racist, misogynistic, anti-Semitic, or whatever material it is that we don't want our children watching, whether it overrides the desire to keep our little girls safe from people telling them about their weight and having them obsess about that until they develop eating disorders, is a court question the court might turn its mind to. Now, she didn't say they would say, well, that's unconstitutional. She said that it's a possibility. So here we have a situation where the government says it's going to do a certain thing. We see Anthony Albanese standing in the Prime Minister's courtyard in front of the assembled media saying with a solemn face, we want Australian parents to know we've got your back, whatever that means. And it turns out that on the most fundamental question, that is preventing children from having an account, is going to prevent them from accessing offensive material. The legislation fails. But even with the best of intents, it's still not going to do what the government says it will do. And in some ways, gives parents perhaps a false sense of security, saying, we don't have to worry about this thing anymore. We don't have to worry about what our children are watching on YouTube, because the government's passed a law, and the law says children can't do this, and YouTube has to stop them from doing it, so our work is done for us. That is not the case. Legislation says that the platform owner must take reasonable steps, but it doesn't define what those reasonable steps are. So if you're a tech-savvy 13 or 14 or 15-year-old and you desperately want to have a YouTube account, sadly, I feel almost certain that you'll find a way around it. All right, well, those are my thoughts. Thank you for watching. If you have a comment, please leave it in the appropriate place. And as I'm always saying these days, comment on the content. If I've made an error in explaining something or interpreting what Professor Toomey said, please correct it. I don't want to give false information. I don't want to be accused of misleading people or giving disinformation. Enjoy your day. Monitor what your children are watching on YouTube, and I'll talk to you again when I'm making the next running video. I'm coming to the end of Norwood Road here. This is Marble Hill Road actually, directly opposite Kingsdale Wines on the Crookwell Road. I said it was about 4 kilometres, turned out to be 4.4 3 kilometres. I came back the way I came would be going north. The way I've just finished going south. To my left, west of Crookwell, and to my right back towards Goulburn. So I've got 4.4 kilometres to go back to my starting point. As I said earlier, thanks for watching. Have a good day. I'll catch you in another running video shortly.